The sun always seemed to shine a little too perfectly on Maple Grove Estates. White picket fences gleamed like they'd been pressure-washed by angels. Lawns were clipped to military precision, and every driveway sparkled with the exact same shade of approved gray sealant. It was the kind of place realtors called idyllic, and residents secretly called a prison with better landscaping. At the center of it all sat the HOA office, a converted model home with fake plants and a sign that read "Pride in Community" in cheerful cursive. Nobody ever admitted how much that office felt like a throne room. Lucas Reed had lived on Maple Lane for 14 years. Same beige rancher. Same dented mailbox he refused to replace because it still works. Same quiet routine. He never missed a trash day. Never parked on the grass. Never let his holiday lights stay up past January 15th. But behind the scenes, Lucas was the guy who kept the whole place from sliding into chaos. He'd built the neighborhood portal himself, on his own laptop, on his own weekends, because the official HOA software kept crashing during fee collection. The app tracked violations automatically, sent polite reminders, even color-coded the enforcement calendar so nobody got double fined for the same cracked sidewalk. He'd linked it to the gate cameras, the community email list, and the emergency alert system. All of it undocumented, all of it running like clockwork, and none of it credited to him. Karen Whitaker, on the other hand, had been president for 6 years running. She wore pastel blazers 2 sizes too small, smiled like she was filming a campaign ad, and spoke incomplete TED Talk paragraphs. "We are building legacy values," she'd say at every monthly meeting, waving a laminated agenda like it was the Constitution. She loved rules, loved enforcing them, loved the little clipboard that never left her side. Residents whispered that she measured grass blades with a ruler on Sunday mornings just to stay sharp. But she never actually fixed anything. She just fined, and fined, and fined. Lucas never complained. He'd quietly patch a portal glitch at 2 a.m. So Mrs. Alvarez didn't get hit with a late fee notice she couldn't afford. He'd reroute the automated gate logs when Karen accidentally locked out the entire west side during a surprise inspection. He'd even rewritten the violation appeal form after Karen started rejecting every single one with the same copy-paste line. Denied per section 4.2. Failure to maintain aesthetic harmony. Nobody thanked him. Nobody noticed. Until the day the board announced they were creating a brand new paid position, Director of Community Operations. The email hit inboxes like a polite grenade. "We are seeking a visionary leader to streamline our digital infrastructure and elevate resident experience," Karen wrote in the subject line. She'd already booked the community center for her vision presentation. Residents started placing bets in the group chat. Lucas stared at the screen for a long minute, then opened a blank document and began typing. Not slides, not vision boards, just cold numbers. 98% reduction in missed violation notices. 47% faster fee processing. 0 double-billed residents since the portal went live. 14 years of quiet proof. He submitted it at 11:47 p.m. on the deadline night. Karen's submission arrived 2 minutes later, complete with a Canva deck titled "Leading with Heart and Harmony," a QR code to her personal YouTube channel called HOA Heroes, and a photo of her handing out "thank you" for complying cookies at last year's block party. The neighborhood held its breath. 3 weeks later, the board decision landed in every inbox with the subtlety of a sledgehammer. After careful consideration of leadership energy and community alignment, the email read, "We are thrilled to welcome Karen Whitaker as our new Director of Community Operations in addition to her presidential duties." Not a single mention of technical experience. Not a single line about the portal that kept the entire place from descending into paperwork hell. Lucas read it once, closed his laptop, and walked to the kitchen for a glass of water like nothing had happened. But his jaw did that tiny twitch The same one he got when someone left their trash bin out past noon on a non-pickup day. He didn't storm the office. He didn't post a rant in the Facebook group. He simply printed 2 pages, bullet points only, and walked them over to Karen's house that same evening. She opened the door in yoga pants and a boss lady sweatshirt, holding a glass of Chardonnay like a trophy. "Lucas, so good to see a supportive neighbor," she chirped, already reaching for the papers. "I just knew the board would recognize real vision when they saw it." He handed her the envelope without a word. Inside, his 2-week resignation from every volunteer role he'd ever held: portal admin, violation database maintainer, emergency alert coordinator. Effective immediately. Karen's smile faltered for half a second before she recovered with her signature pageant laugh. "Oh, honey, we'll figure it out. These systems are just tools. The real magic is in the people-first mindset." Lucas nodded once, turned, and walked back down her perfectly edged walkway. He didn't slam the gate. He didn't need to. The click of the latch sounded louder than any shout. That night, he updated one last folder on his personal drive, labeled Failsafe Maple Grove version 3.2, and added a single line in the comments: "If this ever stops working, remember who built it." The first crack appeared 48 hours later. Karen called her inaugural Operation Sync meeting in the community center. She'd printed new name tags that said Director Karen in glitter font. Residents trickled in, clutching coffee cups and bracing for another motivational speech. She clicked her Bluetooth presenter like she was launching a rocket. "Team, yes. I'm calling you team now. We are going to modernize everything. No more clunky old systems. We're talking fresh workflows, empowered residents, and zero legacy noise." Someone in the back raised a hand. Karen? The portal's not sending my violation appeal. It's been stuck on processing since yesterday." Karen waved it off with a laugh that sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. "That's just a temporary hiccup while we transition. I'll have my assistant look at it." She didn't have an assistant. She had a spreadsheet she couldn't open without the password Lucas had never shared. By day 3, the fines started misfiring. Mrs. Alvarez got hit with a $250 notice for excessive holiday spirit because the portal still thought it was December. Mr. Patel received 3 identical citations for the same cracked sidewalk, each one auto-generated at 3 a.m. because the duplicate check script Lucas wrote had stopped authenticating. The gate cameras froze mid-swing, trapping the FedEx guy inside the complex for 45 minutes while Karen screamed into her phone, "Just reboot it. Why isn't it working? I signed off on all those updates." The updates she'd signed off on without reading. The ones Lucas had quietly flagged years ago in an email she'd replied to with, "Not a priority right now. Focus on curb appeal." Residents started whispering in the group chat. "Did Lucas quit? I thought he ran everything. My trash reminder never came. Now I've got a $75 fine for leaving the bin out an extra hour." Karen's response was a mass email titled, "Embracing Change Together, Red Heart," that contained exactly 0 solutions and 3 gifs of people high-fiving. Lucas, meanwhile, had gone completely dark. His Maple Grove email bounced with a polite auto-reply: "I no longer volunteer for community operations. For technical issues, please contact Director Karen Whitaker. Good luck." The silence after that email was so complete you could hear the sprinklers clicking on in perfect unison across the entire neighborhood. And that's when the real comedy of errors began. By the end of week 1, the portal was a ghost town of error messages. Residents trying to pay quarterly dues got stuck in an infinite loop that kept charging them $0 and then emailing them angry receipts for failure to remit. Karen held an emergency town hall, standing on a little stage in heels that clicked like countdown timers. She prepared a PowerPoint called Disruption is Growth. The first slide featured a stock photo of a phoenix rising from ashes. The second slide had her face photoshopped onto it. "Listen, Neighbors, she began, voice syrupy. Sometimes we have to let old systems die, so new harmony can rise. I've been reviewing the back end myself, and I can assure you. A hand shot up. Karen, my account shows I paid 3 times this month, and now the system says I owe $900 in late fees. Another voice from the side. My gate access card stopped working. I've been locked out of my own house for 6 hours. Karen's smile tightened like a rubber band about to snap. These are exactly the kind of legacy issues we're phasing out. I'm bringing in a brand new platform next quarter. Until then, we'll handle everything manually. It builds character. The room went dead quiet. Manual. In a neighborhood of 312 homes. The same Karen who once fined a widow $150 for having a wreath that was 3 shades too festive now wanted everyone to fill out paper forms in triplicate. Someone in the back actually laughed, a short, bitter bark that echoed off the community center rafters. That night, the first real disaster hit. The emergency alert system, Lucas's baby, failed to trigger during a freak thunderstorm. Lightning took out a transformer on Pine Street. Normally, the portal would have texted every resident in the affected block within 90 seconds with evacuation instructions and shelter locations. Instead, nothing. People woke up to flooded basements and no warning. Karen's response? A 2 a.m. group text that read, "Stay calm and comply with Section 7.1. Natural disaster preparedness is a personal responsibility." By morning, the Facebook group was on fire. Screenshots of misfired fines. Photos of backed up trash. One resident posted a video of Karen trying to fix the gate camera by hitting it with her clipboard. The caption, "Director Karen in her natural habitat." Lucas watched none of it. He was 3 towns over, interviewing at Oak Ridge Villas, the rival community that had quietly poached him after noticing their own system had been lagging behind Maple Groves for years. They offered him double the volunteer stipend he'd never taken, plus full autonomy. He accepted with the same quiet nod he'd given Karen the night he resigned. Back at Maple Grove, the cracks became canyons. The violation database started auto-flagging every single house for non-compliant landscaping because the color-coded calendar Lucas built had lost its license key. Suddenly, every lawn was too green or too brown, depending on which way the sun hit. Karen tried to issue a mass pardon email, but accidentally sent it with her personal signature still attached. Best. Karen Red Heart, your HOA queen. Residents screenshotted it and turned it into memes faster than she could delete the thread. She called an emergency board meeting at her dining room table because the community center was now undergoing aesthetic upgrades. The board members looked like they'd been dragged through a hedge maze. One of them, old Mr. Hargrove, kept muttering, "I told you we should have kept Lucas on payroll." Karen shot him a look that could curdle milk. "I have everything under control," she insisted, sliding a fresh Canva printout across the table. "I've reached out to 3 different software companies. We'll have a new portal by next month. In the meantime, I've created a shared Google Sheet for manual violation logging." The Google Sheet lasted exactly 4 hours before it crashed under the weight of 312 simultaneous edits and duplicate entries. Someone typed Karen's clipboard is the real virus in the comment column. She deleted the entire sheet and cried in her walk-in closet where nobody could see. The real turning point came on day 12 when the gate system locked every resident out at 6:01 p.m. Sharp. Nobody could get home from work. Cars idled in a mile-long line outside the entrance while Karen stood inside the guard shack in her pastel blazer, megaphone in one hand, trying to shout instructions over the honking. Everyone remained calm. This is simply a synchronization issue. I'm personally overseeing the reboot. A dad in a minivan rolled down his window. "Karen, my kid has soccer practice in 20 minutes, and the app says my card expired yesterday again." Another neighbor yelled, "Ipaid Malasia duas." The portal took my money but never updated the status. Karen's face had gone the color of cheap rose. She kept clicking her little Bluetooth presenter, even though there was no projector. This is why we need fresh leadership energy. Old systems breed complacency. That's when the first lawsuit threat appeared in the group chat. Then the second. Then a local news van showed up because someone had tipped them off that Maple Grove Estates is holding residents hostage over a computer glitch. Karen tried to pose for the camera with her best "everything's fine" smile, but the reporter asked the one question she couldn't spin. Who actually built the system you're now blaming? She froze. The microphone hovered. In the background, you could hear residents chanting, "We want Lucas," like it was a protest. That night, she did the one thing she swore she'd never do. She drove to Lucas's new office at Oak Ridge Villas. She showed up in full director regalia, blazer, clipboard, even a little name tag that still said Karen Whitaker, president and director. Lucas was in a glass-walled conference room reviewing code with two junior techs who actually listened when he spoke. Karen knocked politely, then barged in anyway. "Lucas, darling, we need to talk resident to resident. The community is struggling without your touch. I'm prepared to offer you a generous consulting fee to come back and stabilize things. Name your price." Lucas didn't even look up from his screen. "You already have my price. It's in the licensing agreement my attorney sent yesterday." Karen blinked. "Licensing? Those were community tools. You built them while you lived here." Lucas finally turned. His voice stayed soft, almost gentle. "I built them on my own time, with my own equipment. After I emailed the board in 2021 asking for clear ownership documentation. You replied, 'Not a priority, focus on curb appeal.' That email is Exhibit A." Karen's mouth opened, closed, open again. The junior techs tried not to smirk. She left without another word. But the next morning, every resident received a new email from the HOA. Due to unforeseen licensing complexities, temporary fees will be suspended while we negotiate a fair resolution. Translation: Karen had to pay Lucas to turn the lights back on. The negotiation lasted exactly 9 days. Lucas didn't gloat. He didn't send memes. He simply forwarded the original 2021 email chain every time Karen tried to lowball him. Each reply added another zero to the licensing fee for retroactive, unauthorized use. By the time the board caved, the number was so large Karen had to dip into the emergency reserve fund, the one residents had paid into for rainy days and beautification. The portal flickered back to life at 3:14 p.m. On a Tuesday. Fines corrected themselves. Gate cards reactivated. The emergency system pinged everyone with a cheerful, "All clear. Sorry for the inconvenience." Residents cheered in the streets like it was New Year's. Karen, however, looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her blazer hung crooked. Her lipstick had migrated. And in the next board meeting, she tried one last Hail Mary. "We should vote to update our bylaws so this never happens again," she announced. Voice cracking. No single resident should hold this much power. Old Mr. Hargrove leaned forward. "Karen, the only person who held power was the one you pushed out. Maybe stop measuring grass and start measuring competence." The room didn't laugh. It didn't need to. The silence did all the work. The audit hit like a wrecking ball wrapped in pastel ribbon. The county compliance officer, some guy named Alan with a voice like gravel and zero tolerance for nonsense, showed up unannounced with a folder thicker than Karen's entire vision deck. He sat at the head of the community center table and didn't bother with small talk. 12 vendor contracts, 37 automated fee batches, and 4 emergency alerts all signed off by you, Director Whitaker, in the last 90 days. Yet none of the underlying code was reviewed or owned by the HOA care to explain. Karen tried to smile. It wobbled. "Alan, these are legacy systems. I was simply maintaining continuity while we modernized. You signed documents you couldn't read," Alan cut in. "You approved changes you didn't understand. And when it all collapsed, your name was the only one on every digital trail. The board members stared at their legal pads like they were suddenly fascinating. Karen's hand shook so hard her pen left little dots across the agenda. Outside in the hallway, residents had started gathering. Someone had brought popcorn. Another had printed T-shirts that said, "Lucas built it. Karen broke it." The energy felt like the final scene of a heist movie where the villain finally gets cornered. Alan kept reading. "We also found the 2021 email chain. You replied, 'Not a priority.' That single line just cost the reserve fund $47,000 in licensing fees. Congratulations." Karen tried one last pivot. "This is about trust. I empowered the team. You empowered one man and then fired him," Alan said flatly. "Then you signed off on systems you called clunky dinosaur logic and private Slack messages we've also obtained. Shall I read those aloud?" He didn't need to. The board had already seen the screenshots. Karen's face went the color of expired yogurt. That same afternoon, Lucas received a framed copy of his 2021 email from the Oak Ridge Villas board. They hung it in their lobby under the caption, "He warned them." Lucas smiled once, small, private, and went back to teaching his new team how to document everything. "If you don't understand it," he told them, "don't approve it. And never, ever reply, 'Not a priority.'" Back at Maple Grove, the final staff. "No. Board. Meeting was brutal." Karen arrived late. Eyes ringed. Blazer wrinkled. She tried to open with her usual, "Let's activate synergy," but the words died in her throat when Alan slid the termination paperwork across the table. "Effective immediately," he said. "Access revoked. The new interim director will be Lucas Reed, on a paid consulting basis until the community votes on permanent structure." Karen didn't cry. She just nodded once, stood up, and walked out. Her heels clicked down the hallway slower than usual, like even they were embarrassed. Nobody clapped. Nobody needed to. The relief in the room was so loud it drowned out every pastel slogan she'd ever hung on the walls. The next day, the portal sent a single mass notification. Lucas's first official act as interim director. It read, "All previous fines issued under the prior administration have been reviewed and cleared. Welcome back to a community that actually works." Residents replied with heart emojis, fire emojis, and one very enthusiastic, "Finally." 3 months later, Maple Grove Estates looked the same on the surface. Lawns still perfect, fences still white, but something fundamental had shifted. The monthly meetings were shorter. The fines were rarer, and nobody called anyone director with air quotes anymore. Lucas never moved back into the spotlight. He still lived in the same beige rancher, still drove the same 10-year-old truck, but now his name appeared on the official org chart in small, honest font, community operations lead, volunteer plus paid consultant. He'd insisted on the hybrid title. "Keeps everyone honest," he told the board. Karen's house went on the market 2 weeks after her removal. She left in the middle of the night with a U-Haul and a new Instagram bio that read, "Former HOA president, now thriving in minimal rule living." The neighborhood group chat threw a virtual party the day her "for sale" sign went up. The best part, the part that still made residents chuckle years later, was the new emergency alert system Lucas built. It included one small, permanent addition. Every time a new board member tried to push an untested rule change, the portal would send a gentle reminder to the entire community. "Remember 2023. Document everything, or pay the licensing fee." Nobody ever called it the Lucas effect out loud, but everyone knew what it meant. When something worked flawlessly and nobody could explain why, they'd just smile and say, "Must be running on quiet competence." Lucas never bragged, never posted victory laps. He simply kept the machine humming, same as always, while the neighborhood finally learned the difference between a leader who talks about harmony and one who actually builds it. And somewhere in the distance, in a rival community with slightly less perfect lawns but way better software, Lucas sipped coffee in a sunlit office and watched the Maple Grove portal metrics glow green. Not because he needed the validation, just because it was nice to know that sometimes, when the flashy blazers and glitter fonts finally run out of batteries, the quiet guy with the dented mailbox and the undocumented code is the only one left standing. The neighborhood slept better that night. The sprinklers clicked on in perfect unison. And for the first time in years, nobody got fined for having their welcome mat half an inch too far to the left.